Welcome to Legally Speaking with Victor Gwam. I'm Victor Gwam, a legal practitioner with over 35 years of experience arguing cases at all levels of court in Nigeria. This podcast is a passion project born from my deep love for the law and the countless insights I've gathered along the way. Whether you're a lawyer, law student, or just curious about how the legal system works, you're in the right place. You know what's wild about the legal system? A $7 loan in Nigeria turned into a decades-long court battle that completely changed how we think about property rights and evidence. Today's case shows how the smallest disputes can expose huge gaps in our justice system.
Let me make sure I understand. This all started with a tiny loan of 2,700 naira back in 1988? That's fascinating how such a modest amount led to years of litigation.
Exactly right. Here's what happened. Mr. Martins owned a flat through a government housing program and needed quick cash. He borrowed what started as 2,700 naira from AOMO Limited, using his property as collateral. The loan eventually grew to 5,050 naira total.
From what I understand, things went sideways when Mr. Martins tried to repay the loan. He claims he paid back most of it, but AOMO wouldn't accept the final payment. Meanwhile, they just started collecting rent on his property.
That's where this gets really interesting. AOMO Limited claims they actually sold the property to one of their chiefs who supposedly paid off the mortgage. But here's the kicker. When it came time to prove this in court, they didn't present a single piece of evidence.
So they filed all the legal paperwork claiming they had the right to sell, but then just didn't show up to back it up. That seems like legal strategy 101.
Well, that's the fascinating part about civil litigation. You can't just write down your side of the story and expect the court to accept it. There's this fundamental principle that pleadings are not evidence. You actually have to prove what you're claiming.
The way they tried to work around that is pretty clever, though, arguing they could rely on what came out during cross-examination of the other side's witnesses.
But here's where their whole strategy fell apart. When the Court of Appeal checked the record, there wasn't any transcript of that cross-examination. It wasn't even mentioned in the final arguments. They built their entire appeal around evidence that didn't exist in the court record.
So what happened with all those mortgage documents and deeds they were relying on?
Well, that's another fascinating layer to this case. Under Nigerian law, these kinds of property documents have to be registered and get consent from the state governor. Without that, they're considered dormant, basically legally meaningless.
The implications must be huge. We're talking about decades of rental income they collected, based on documents that turned out to have no legal effect.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how the court handled this. They applied the law as it existed when the case was filed in 1997, not current law. It's this crucial principle that you judge cases based on the law that existed when events took place.
You know what strikes me about this whole case? It really shows how those seemingly annoying bureaucratic requirements, registering documents, getting official consent, actually serve really important purposes.
That's such a great point, and it goes beyond just property law. This case demonstrates how the entire legal system relies on proper procedures and documentation. Without those guardrails, anyone could just claim anything in court without having to prove it.
Looking at the bigger picture, I imagine this case has had quite an impact on how similar disputes are handled in Nigeria's legal system.
Oh, absolutely. It's become this perfect example of how courts protect rights regardless of the amount at stake. Whether you're dealing with a multi-million-dollar property or a modest government housing flat, the same principles apply. You have to prove your case with actual evidence.
Well, that's really the lasting lesson here, isn't it? Keep proper records, follow procedures, and make sure you can prove what you claim.
You know what's really remarkable? This case might never have happened if AOMO Limited had just accepted that final loan payment of 2,050 naira. Instead, they ended up losing in court and now have to account for decades of rental income, all because they couldn't prove their side of the story.